on Google this year. So every year, the tech giant will release a year in search list, which highlights top trending topics, news, or events that piqued our interest.
And in 2019, the Singapore haze and Hong Kong protests are some of the popular terms that topped Google's list of searches here in Singapore. And here to shed light on these trends, we're joined by Angeline Leow, Google Singapore's Head of Communications. Thanks, Angeline, for coming in to speak to us.
Thank you.
Now, we're going to be showing our viewers on a bit more of the lists that we're talking about today, but tell us some of the how would you characterize then the sort of the search items that people were looking for?
Right. So every year we release Google's Year in Search, and it showcases the topics, people, and events and news that captured the world's attention across the year. So it's a snapshot of 2019. I would say it's an interesting and meaningful look back at what are the interesting moments. In Singapore, there were definitely events that showed some level of anxiety and concern when Singaporeans were searching about these events. But overall, I would say there was more light-hearted lifestyle content, and there were sporting moments that brought Singaporeans together. So I would view that positively.
Okay, so let's zoom into Singapore. The haze topped the list. I'm looking at this, followed by Jewel Changi Airport. So what do you think, why do you think actually these topics sparked the most interest in people here in Singapore? Because, you know, there were others as well. We have the total 12 million the 12 million Hong Bao draw, Funan Mall as well.
Yes, that's really quite a list, I must say. Well, to your point on the haze, I would say Singaporeans care deeply about our health. It's not a new issue, but what we saw this year was that the haze and air quality level actually crossed unhealthy range for the first time in 3 years. So we saw search interest spike in the month of September. It also corresponded with searches for N95 masks, no surprise there. So people were taking proactive steps, to take preventive measures and mitigate the effects of the haze.
Yeah, trying to learn how they can sort of keep themselves safe and find out how long it was going to go on for as well. Turning our attention to the international front, perhaps no surprise, Hong Kong at the top of the list. I mean, it's still ongoing. We're 6 months into the protest, but it seems a lot of people here in Singapore are very interested to know and learn more about what is happening over there.
You're absolutely right. Every year when we release Year in Search, we see that Singaporeans are actually very much attuned to global affairs. They very much want to find out about what's happening around the world, and they turn to Google Search for diverse sources of information to look for diverse perspectives, varying perspectives, and to take a deep dive into a topic. So for Hong Kong protests, like you mentioned, is still ongoing. Interest is still there, but there were a few moments that we saw a spike in search interest. So, for example, in mid-August, when Hong Kong International Airport was actually shut down, when protesters were there, we saw a spike in interest. And another was most recently at the Hong Kong universities when there were violent clashes.
So maybe we're also, Singaporeans are also checking to see whether it's going to impede their travel, because there's a lot of, business travels as well.
Exactly.
So let's take a look on the three main lists. What are some of the other interesting observations you made then?
Two things. The first is Singaporeans are sports fans. I'm sure you saw on the list there are three big sporting moments. Cricket World Cup. There are also two tennis tournaments. We'll see that Wimbledon and Australian Open. And I think people always rely on Google Search for like, hey, what's the latest score? What are the match highlights? They want to have quick information, and they turn to search to do that. The other thing I would say is movies. There are three movie titles on the list there. Not sure if you caught any of those. Avengers Endgame, Captain Marvel, and Joker. Again, people look for information on search like movie timings. What are the trailers I can watch on YouTube, for example? Where to buy movie tickets in the cinemas nearby. So I think that's what we've observed.
Yeah, interesting to see cricket at the top of the list. That one surprised me.
Maybe because they don't understand how it's played, and so they need,
Or maybe there's a very active, small cricket-loving community here in Singapore that is incredibly active. Aside from these, though, Google's also collated trends in the other categories, such as holiday destinations, recipes, and things like that. Have any of the search interests changed significantly over the years, or you noticed any trends?
Well, we actually see trillions of searches on Google every single year globally. So out of these, 15% every single day are new searches. So I would say that's the kind of scale that we're seeing on search, and trends shift all the time. But what hasn't changed is our mission and how we continue to organize the world's information and making it universally accessible and useful for everyone. And of course, we continue to want to improve our product. People's expectations of search have changed from when we started 21 years ago. People are expecting more of us, and we welcome that. So hopefully we can create better products to make it more useful for everyone. One trend I would say that we've seen is actually job-related searches. on Google search. So every year now we see every day actually, there are millions of job-related searches globally on Google. So what we did was last year in Singapore, we launched a new job experience for Singaporeans to hopefully make it easier to find a job. So for example, if I'm a marketing manager and I key in marketing manager jobs on Google now, I will see a comprehensive listing of all the job listings from various job websites, online classifieds, and company sites. So it pulls everything together really easily for you. And you can even filter it by job type, by level of seniority, by the recency of the post. And if you don't find anything that's relevant for you, you can even sign up for new alerts. So hopefully that's helpful for Singaporeans because we know job hunting is quite a difficult process already.
So, but there's very quickly, there's a worry that, our details are going to be released. How sure are we that, it's going to be anonymous?
That's a very good question. I'm glad you asked that, Glenda. So we do take privacy and data protection very seriously. For urine search specifically, the data that you're seeing here they're all aggregate data that we use and anonymized data. So these are search terms typed in by many, many users, and they aren't tied to any individual user at all.
Okay, thank you so much. Good to know, and thanks for coming in and speaking to us. We've been speaking to Google's Singapore's communications head, Angeline Leow.